Hello, dear friends, welcome to our YouTube channel, USA Football Zone, latest football highlights. Some football matches are merely games, others are battles for national pride, fueled by centuries of bitter rivalry. But on November 21, 2023, at Rio de Janeiro's iconic Maracana Stadium, the world witnessed something entirely different. This was not just a game, nor was it merely a brawl. The scenes that unfolded there resembled a battlefield. Before the ball had even started rolling on the pitch, horrific violence erupted in the stands. Police batons were being swung, seats were being hurled. And amidst a wave of panic-terrified spectators were streaming onto the field. Amidst all this, the players stood watching in disbelief. Argentina's goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, was even seen attempting to scale a barrier to confront a police officer. Finally, in an unprecedented act of defiance, the world champion and captain, Lionel Messi, made a decision. He turned his back on the chaos and led his team off the pitch. It was not just a World Cup qualifying match that hung in the balance here. Brazil's record of remaining unbeaten in World Cup qualifiers was at risk, a streak spanning decades and 64 consecutive matches, without a single defeat. But on that night, against their arch-rivals Argentina, that history and Brazil's pride stood on the brink of shattering. To understand this fire, one must understand its history. Argentina versus Brazil, known as the Superclásico de las Americas, is not merely a rivalry for many, it embodies the very essence of footballing competition. It is a battle of identity, a century-long struggle for supremacy between the two most successful footballing nations on earth. Every match is like a powder keg, waiting for nothing more than a single spark. But in this particular match, there was yet another layer to the gunpowder. Just 2 years earlier, Argentina had arrived at this very stadium, the Maracana, and defeated Brazil in the final of the Copa America. That victory had ended Argentina's 28-year trophy drought and secured Lionel Messi his first major international honor. For Brazil, it was a national humiliation, a wound that remained raw. Now, in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, the stakes seemed even higher. Brazil was enduring a difficult period for the first time in history. They had lost 2 consecutive World Cup qualifying matches. The pressure on the team and their new coach was immense, yet they had one final lifeline to preserve their unbeaten status, their home record. For decades throughout the modern era of home and away qualifiers, no team had managed to defeat Brazil on their own soil. This record stood as a symbol of their dominance in South America, a testament to their impregnable strength. For the reigning world champions, Argentina, this presented an opportunity to inflict the deepest possible blow upon their rivals. It was a chance not merely to defeat their adversaries, but to become the first team to dismantle brick by brick this cathedral sacred ground of Brazilian football. Following a hard-fought defeat at the hands of Uruguay, they needed a victory to reassert their dominance. Both teams arrived in Rio determined to prove their supremacy, with a great deal at stake. The atmosphere was electric long before the spectators even entered the stadium. The trouble began during the playing of the national anthems, as so often happens in matches of this magnitude. At the Maracana Stadium, due to a major organizational blunder, Argentine supporters were seated in a section where there was neither adequate physical separation nor sufficient security measures to keep them apart from the fervent Brazilian home crowd, a recipe for disaster. The moment the Argentine national anthem began to play, fighting erupted in the stands. What started as a minor altercation between rival supporters quickly escalated into a full-blown riot following the intervention of the Brazilian police. Eyewitness accounts and shocking footage revealed police officers entering the section occupied by Argentine fans and using batons. Amidst this chaos, supporters, including the families of some players, became trapped. In response, Argentine fans retaliated, tearing up seats and hurling them at officials. The pandemonium spread like wildfire. To escape the turmoil, fans clambered over barricades and rushed toward the perimeter of the pitch. At least one supporter had to be carried away on a stretcher, bleeding profusely from the head. The beautiful game football was forgotten, replaced by scenes of extreme brutality. From the pitch, players from both teams watched the unfolding horror in terror. Pleading for calm, Brazilian captain Marquinhos and several Argentine players rushed desperately toward the stands in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. There was a moment of sheer helplessness and rage among the players when Argentine goalkeeper Emi Martinez scaled a barricade in a desperate bid to stop a police officer from assaulting a fan. They had gone there to watch a football match. Yet it was their own people who were falling victim to attacks, as the violence continued to escalate. Lionel Messi decided enough was enough. This was not a game, it was not safe. He turned to his teammates, his face bearing a deep and resolute expression. Later, he explained that his decision was simple. We saw how they were beating people. Today was terrifying. Something terrible could have happened. He was no longer merely a player, he had emerged as a captain, charged with the responsibility of protecting his team and their families watching from the stands. With a simple gesture, he signaled his team to follow him. He led them off the pitch and into the safety of the dressing room. His declaration was clear and emphatic: we are not playing, we are leaving. The world champions refused to play until the safety of their supporters could be guaranteed. As the stadium erupted in chaos and fury, the Brazilian team waited out on the pitch. This delay lasted nearly 30 minutes. Back in the locker room, the Argentine players were torn, deliberating whether or not to continue with the match. Messi made it abundantly clear the well-being of the supporters took precedence over the game itself. Finally, once security forces managed to restore some semblance of order by moving the visiting team's supporters to a safe zone, the Argentine squad returned to the pitch, but the atmosphere had changed forever. The violence preceding the match had poisoned the environment, and now that hostility spilled onto the field itself, as the players resumed their warm-ups. A fresh altercation broke out, this time between Messi and the Brazilian forward, Rodrigo. Sparks flew. Now, the match promised to be nothing short of explosive. When the whistle finally blew, it signaled not merely the start of a football match, but the commencement of a grueling 90-minute battle. The finesse and skill typically expected from a fixture of this caliber were conspicuously absent. In their place stood sheer aggression and bitterness. The first half was exceptionally violent, characterized by a relentless succession of fouls and physical clashes. The final statistics spoke volumes. A staggering 42 fouls were committed over the course of the match. The opening 20 minutes were particularly ugly, with the referee repeatedly brandishing yellow cards in a desperate attempt to bring the situation under control. Just 5 minutes into the match, Brazil's Gabriel Jesus received a yellow card for punching Rodrigo de Paul in the face, an incident that effectively set the tone for the entire match. It was clear that this match was not about playing beautiful football, it was simply about winning at any cost. Even without injured star players like Neymar and Vinicius Jr., Brazil maintained their dominance throughout the first half. Their best chance came just before the break, when Gabriel Martinelli's shot was heading toward the goal, only for defender Christian Romero to make a magnificent save right on the goal line. Early in the second half, another potential goal by Martinelli was denied, this time thanks to a crucial save by Emi Martinez. Argentina, on the other hand, seemed content to absorb the pressure and disrupt Brazil's rhythm. They were disciplined, well-organized, and ultimately ruthless. They knew that this game would not be won through spectacular attacking play, but rather through stout defense and a single decisive moment. They waited patiently for their opportunity as the second half wore on. The match evolved into a tense, hard-fought battle. Desperate to please the home crowd, Brazil pressed frantically for a goal, but the Argentine defense remained unyielding. And then, in the 63rd minute, that moment finally arrived. Argentina won a corner kick. Giovanni Lo Celso, one of the team's few creative players, stepped up to take it. He delivered a superb, curling ball straight into the heart of the Brazilian penalty area. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though time stood still. Then, rising above it all, above the Brazilian defenders, above the roar of the crowd, above the weight of history, rose Nicolas Otamendi. The veteran defender struck the ball with immense power, sending his towering header straight into the top corner of the net. The goal looked deceptively simple, yet its impact was devastating. The Maracana Stadium fell into a stunned silence. Incredibly, according to official statistics, this was Argentina's only shot on goal throughout the entire match. But for them, nothing more was needed. Brazil's plight deepened in the 82nd minute when substitute Joe Linton, who had entered the pitch just moments earlier, collided with Rodrigo de Paul and was shown a straight red card for violent conduct. Playing with 10 men, their morale hit rock bottom. As the final moments ticked away, utterly despondent, some home supporters began chanting "Olé" with every Argentine pass, while a small contingent of visiting fans cheered raucously. The final whistle blew, confirming a reality that had once seemed unimaginable. Argentina had won 1-0. For the first time in history after 64 matches, 51 wins, and 13 draws. Brazil had lost a World Cup qualifying match on home soil. The streak was snapped by their greatest rivals in their most hallowed stadium. Following their defeat at the hands of the 5-time World Cup champions, this marked Brazil's third consecutive loss in the qualifiers. The champions found themselves in a precarious situation. For Argentina, this was a monumental victory. It was revenge, it was a statement, as Lionel Messi remarked after the match. This team continues to achieve historic success. They had entered the lion's den, faced down violence, and emerged with a historic triumph. The Brazilians departed. Long after the final whistle, the players remained on the pitch, celebrating this monumental triumph alongside their supporters, held at the Maracanã on November 21, 2023. This match will be remembered for many things: the shameful violence that erupted in the stands, Messi's leadership in leading the team off the field, and the brutal, foul-laden contest that ensued. But above all, it will be remembered as the night the world champions breached their opponent's defense. They dismantled everything in their path, writing a new bloody and unforgettable chapter in the history of football's greatest rivalry. So, what are your thoughts on this tumultuous, historic night? Was this the most thrilling Argentina-Brazil match you have ever witnessed? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this report, be sure to like and subscribe for deeper insights into the world of football. This was not merely a matter of an Argentine victory or a Brazilian defeat. It was a moment that perfectly encapsulated the passion, animosity, and intensity that make this rivalry one of the most compelling in the sporting world. It was a night when a football match became the focal point of national pride and when a legendary, unbeaten streak came to a close in the most dramatic fashion imaginable.